amazing work. And so this is Jed. He works at Freedom Preparatory Academy. He is their director of IT services. So as you know, IT, that's a big job in of itself. So he has over 3,000 computers, both students and teachers that he is working with at one time, and it's over 3 different campuses, so he's a little bit busy. He's also worked with the school for 13 years, so I haven't run him out yet. He loves it. And one thing that I really saw is not only does he do all of his work as the IT director and with all of the computers and helping everyone, and in the comments that we got about is that he is he's very friendly. Sometimes IT folks are not always the most friendly. Jed is. But I saw this, that not only does he do everything with IT, but he is always ready to change a tire, jumpstart a teacher's car, or hop on the snowplow. So he apparently doesn't have enough to do with over 3,000 computers, and so he helps out with the facilities. The quote that describes him best is, "I can stretch a penny a mile." So he also is really good at finding good deals to help their bottom line. Do you have anything to add?
Well, don't think you can coach this guy because it's just so fortunate for the school to be able to find somebody like this, or any school who will stay with you so long term and do so much for you. He really is a key player in our organization, and really he's taught us so much. He's so knowledgeable about all computers and the systems, and he also does security for all of our buildings. So he's on call about 28 hours a day. And Jed is he's a good friend. He has come to my house on a weekend when my own personal computer has crashed or something. And so he's just a real lifesaver in so many ways. He's a one-of-a-kind guy, and I hope that he'll stay with us forever.
I plan on it.
Okay. So we have this certificate for you to acknowledge all of your amazing work. And we also have a Amazon gift card that you can use however you want.
Full of paper.
Yes. May not come for a couple months, but yes. You're still on. You know. Okay. So, just have a few announcements. Happy March. Happy spring break, and you get to spend it here. Welcome. I feel so honored. I do want to give an announcement. This came through on email. You may have seen it, but I do want to point it out because we do want diversity on these boards, and sometimes charter schools are not as well represented on these boards. And if you think charter schools in terms of student population, we're about 12% population, but in terms of the LEAs, we're like 2/3 of the LEAs in the state. So we need to make sure that we are represented well. If you or someone at your school or someone on your board you think might be interested, please forward them this information. This PowerPoint will be going on the internet, and you may have seen the announcement, but there's 2 vacancies. So the first one is the Advisory Committee on Equity of Education Services for Students. They really worked to get a neat little acronym of access. This is the old, or what used to be called, oh, the name just escaped me, but yeah. See that? Not getting anyone to. Anyway, 1 Asian American, 1 individual with expertise for serving students who are at risk for underachievement. So if you know someone that would fit that, please encourage them. And then the Trust Advisory Committee, or TAC, that is 1 individual with expertise or experience serving students who are at risk for underachievement. And you can, are these hyperlinked? Is that why they're underlined?
Are those hyperlinked? Hyperlinked?
Okay, so if you go into this and you click, it should give you information about those committees. And you can take a look. And then this is the actual call and the nomination. And so you can take a look at that. So that is my plea to get people that you think might be interested, or if you yourself are interested, to. Also, I know that those of you who were just at the UAPCS member meeting, I think you talked about legislative session. We will probably next month give you kind of a little wrap up about that. It ends Thursday, so get somewhat of a life back. It's been an interesting session, as it always is. Right now, there's some kind of upheaval about how there might do some funding for schools in general. It kind of came out at the last. I do not know if it will go anywhere, but if it does, it will go to the voters because it will take a constitutional amendment. And so if that does go anywhere, if it passes, we'll talk about it next month and what that may mean in terms of voting. I honestly do not quite know. I've heard both good and bad things about it. I need to be more aware of what the details are and the specific outcomes, if it will be a good thing for education and that it will guarantee certain amounts of funds, or if it will be a bad thing because it more broadly defines who can access those funds. So there's pros and cons. Any general questions for me before I turn it over to wonderful Marie? Okay. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the meeting.
All right, my first announcement is that we have our next charter seminar coming up. So I'm actually going to have William come up and tell you about that, and then go over a few other announcements today. Click on through.
Just click on through, okay.
Yourself. Yeah.
Hi everybody, good to see you all again, I'm back. As she said, my name is William Evans. I work with Ed Direction, and we are hosting the spring session of the Utah Charter Seminars. This month, we are going to be at Odyssey Charter Academy down in Utah County. And I wanted to just give you a little bit of an update about what happened in January with our last session. Firstly, again, the whole point of the charter seminars is to bring charter school leaders and teachers together, help them network, help them connect, give them the opportunity to get into other schools, other classrooms, and see what's kind of happening and learn from each other. We don't often get that benefit with charters. We're very siloed. You know, most of us are kind of our own school unless we're in a network where there's maybe a few other schools. But so this really gives us an opportunity to collaborate, to network, and get to know other people. So far this year, we have had 79 people RSVP, and we had 54 participants actually show up for the charter seminars, which has been really great. We've seen an increase this year in participation, and all of these came from 20 schools, and then actually Davis County actually sent a representative to come learn from New Ames and see what was happening there. Everybody that we've had has also kind of come from all over the state. We had this last session, I think there was a school from Price. One person was from Moab. They're driving all over to come see this, and it's really great. I think that speaks to the level of collaboration that we try to get within charters. And quite honestly, we've had a huge outpouring of support for what we've done. You can see here we've got 100% on things like the leadership breakout session, the questioning strategy. We taught people about how to ask good questions. Metacognition of making sure the students are kind of owning the learning, active student response, they're not just sitting there, things like that. A couple of things that we've noticed as we've collected some data. The biggest piece of feedback, or the biggest area where the teachers and leaders are dissatisfied, is that they just want more time in the actual schools. And unfortunately, the way this whole program is set up, we're only there for a day. We don't get to just go in for days and days and days, so we've got to really cram a whole lot into that one day. And so that's where a lot of the dissatisfaction comes. So we've kind of changed a few things. We're trying to modify it each and every time. So So it's a little bit different and giving us some more opportunity to meet the needs of those that are going to be in attendance. I'll just skip this. This is just more of that. So this spring, this March, we're going to be at Odyssey Charter down in Utah County. They were selected by the State Charter Authority because of some of their really great growth. So you can see here the MGP for math from 2015-16 school year to the 17-18 school year really increased almost 30 points, which is huge. They're doing some really great things. And then all of their other trajectories are also doing really well, doing really great as well. So it's going to be really fun for us to get into their classes, see their teachers that have been there for a number of years, watch them, and just get to know what they're doing to see how we can help others. So this year we have the 2 strategies that we're going to be talking about at Odyssey include teacher clarity and feedback. Their team is doing a really great job of giving very direct feedback to students and really timely feedback. And then also setting the kids up before the lesson even begins to understand what it is they're going to be learning and how they're going to be tested and all that stuff. So they're doing a really great job with that. We're really excited. We've got some great classroom observations. They've already sent me some videos of some of the teachers that we're going to be using as well. And then just the rest of the afternoon is going to be time for us to talk with the teachers, plan how we're going to maybe do better with each of these strategies, and then take it back to our schools. So this is what we've got going on. We're really excited for this. If you'd like to RSVP, the link is right here. And it's case sensitive, or when Marie sends this out, that's hyperlink. And so you can just click on it there, but it's SCSB OC 2020. And that'll let you RSVP. We look forward to having you there. And then if you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email's right here, wevins@eddirection.org. So thank you guys so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Thank you.
All right, continuing on, we've been working each time on recognizing our State Charter School Board members. So we'll real quickly go through their names again, and then we had talked about either having them come visit at our meetings or maybe making a video for you. So we do have our first video to share today, and it's from our board chair. And so we'll share that, and then we'll also review our staff members for a quick minute, and then we will get on with the rest of our meeting today. So of course we have our chair, Kristen Eilenkowski. She is our State Charter School Board chair. Vice Chair, Delana Tonks. Member Brian Bowles. Member Michelle Smith. Member Cindy Phillips. Member Crystal Bassett. And Member Jim Moss. So that is our State Charter School Board. All right, we've got Kristen's video here. Go.
Hi, I'm Kristen Eilenkowski. I'm the chairman of the State Charter School Board. I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work. I know you have a hard job and it is sometimes thankless, but we really appreciate what you're doing, helping make education better in the state of Utah and specifically serving your students of your school. So thank you for your volunteer work. I've been involved in charter schools for a long time, and my involvement started because I was a parent and cared about the education of my own kids. So I know the real reason we all do this is for the students, and I want to thank you for your hard work and all that you do to make education better in the state of Utah. Thank you.
All right, remember, if you have any specific questions or things that you would like me to ask them and have them share with you, email me or email Jenna, and we can get that feedback to them as well. Go. Okay, before we move on to land trust, I guess we'll leave that one up there for her. Staff, stand up. Every time. All right, scooch up here so everyone can see you.
You want them
Remind
to go
us.
up front?
Sure, yeah, even up front, that'd be great. Remind us your name, what you do, and then our fun question for today. If you get an $8 flight now, thanks to the coronavirus, where would you like to go? So, James, take it away.
James Matson, I'm board secretary and support these people as well. If I had an $8 flight, I'd go to Fiji.
Awesome.
Well, I forgot about the coronavirus. I was going to say Italy, but
Maybe skip that one.
I'll go to Spain instead.
Who are you? What do you do?
Oh, right. My name is Greg Cannell. I'm the research consultant here.
What does that mean?
You guys have problems, call me. People have problems with you, they call me. So I'll just take a lot of phone calls from people. And then I usually call either you or them afterwards, so.
And Greg also has access to data, and so if you have questions or need data, he may be able to help you, so.
For everything else, just call Jennifer Lambert.
She's like, no, don't tell them that.
I am Jennifer Lambert, Executive Director for the State Charter School Board. And for $8, I'd just about go anywhere. I think I'd even go to China for that. So.
Feeling brave.
I tend to stay pretty healthy, but I think somewhere down, in the Caribbean, Bahamas sounds really nice right now.
Awesome.
I'm Michael Clark. I'm the oversight coordinator, and so if your school has any struggles with oversight, then I guess I can. I'm not scary. Hopefully, no one is afraid when I call.
At least less scary than coronavirus.
That'd be nice. $8 flights. I would just about go anywhere too. But maybe Alaska. That sounds pretty nice. There's no coronavirus up there, right? So that's
It's not really anything up there.
I'm Stuart Ocobia. I'm the financial auditor for the State Charter School Board. So I handle finances and anything financially related. So if you have any questions like that, you can reach out to me. For $8, I think I would actually go to Hong Kong.
Very brave, Stu.
I'm Jenna Magnetti. I assist Marie and support everybody.
Nice. Awesome. And of course, Marie Stephenson, authorizing and school support. And for $8, I would go to a beach somewhere too. So somewhere tropical, maybe Hawaii or something fun like that. We do have Karen Rapp coming, and she's going to be talking about land trust. You do have some due dates and things coming up, as referenced here on this slide. And then we also have Casey coming from the special ed department, and she actually has a lot to share with you today. And Michael Clark, remember he does oversight, and I had a number of questions that were coming in about special ed. And so we went and we talked to Casey about how we could best address these and really make sure that we had good information coming to our charter directors. And so she had a lot of great ideas and wanted to come take a whole afternoon with you. So she'll be the rest of our meeting today. And so I hope you find that really beneficial and helpful. We do also have a meeting immediately following this meeting that is for some of our schools who are in pre-turnaround. So if you got that, you would have gotten an invite from us to just make sure you stay for that, and so we can support you and help talk to you about that process. Any questions before we move on to land trust?
Michael went to go get her.
Okay, perfect. I think she should be here. Does anyone else have anywhere they want to fly with an $8 coronavirus flight? Where would you go?
I have a question for Jennifer.
Oh, even better.
Was there an anti-negative charter school theme coming out of the legislature this year like we've faced nationally and locally in the past?
Good question. I think that it's very nuanced. I don't think it's quite as strong as what some of the other states are facing right now in terms of the anti-charter sentiment. There are some who are pointing out some very public things that have been in the news with charters in the last year or two. And they have been wanting to use those who are already tending to not be charter friendly, tending to use those saying, okay, we need to fix something. Those who are kind of in the middle or who are charter friendly are looking at things, and they're looking at trying to to fix some things so that there's improvements, but I wouldn't say that that tone is negative. I hear from a lot of people where they'll come and they'll say to me, well, we need to fix some things, but there's some really great charters out there. And then they'll tell me, you know, and it's always different for whoever I'm talking to. They'll tell me about a charter that they're aware of or that is in their district or that is close by them. And they'll talk about all the great things that are happening. And so that's why you'll get, for me, where I keep saying to you, what we need to do is we need to get the good things out there, because unfortunately the bad things is what sells, right? when there's something bad that happens, that's what gets all on the newspapers, but that's not what the majority of what's happening in our charter schools. And so the more that we can get out there, the more that you can have some of these people come and visit you, the better it is for all of us. It's interesting, sometimes I'll ask someone who's telling me and they'll say, oh, I know this one charter school and my friend's kids went there and then they just didn't learn anything, and when they went back to the district school they weren't any good, and I would ask, well, which charter school is it? And either they wouldn't know the name, or they would sometimes tell me the name and it's a private school, not a charter school. But the fact is they're remembering charter school. And so that's where each of us, when there's good things happening, when there's success stories, that's also building up. It's raising all tides. When there are bad things happen, it does hurt all of us, unfortunately, but I do think that we can get our story out there. And that was a very long answer to your simple question, but the short answer is I don't think it's as negative as what I'm hearing other states are facing. Any other questions, reactions? Erin, come on up.
Erin's here.
I'm technology terrible. Good afternoon. It is so great to be able to meet with you. I wish we could get out much more often from our office and meet with you guys. We usually, when we come, it's because we're doing a compliance review and all of you were upset and worried about it and you all just passed fine. So this is a pleasure for me to be able to be here. As you'll notice on the very first thing, the amazing due date. April the 1st. It is a hard deadline. So please don't miss it. Now the really bad news on our end is that there should have been an email that reminded you, a 1-month email, 2-week email, and then a week email. I called about 6 charter schools and not one of them got the very first reminder. So evidently it is not working. So I am pleased to report that of 135 charter schools, I have 9 in right now. Yes. Please get it in by April 1st. I will start calling, and you know I will. So please just.
You should tell us who the winners are.
I didn't write that down. I really should have.
Then we just know if we were on the list.
Anyway, you guys are great. Really. They will get in. They will get in. So anyway, I appreciate that. It's really important though. By this time, so let me also, before we go into the plan for this next year, talk about an amendments for this year, because there's a couple of things that are happening. When you put in an amendment and get it online, I have no way of knowing if that amendment, especially if you have a trust line committee, and they make the recommendation to the governing board, and the principal already puts it online, which is great for that, and then they take it to the board. I have no way of knowing that the governing board has approved that amendment, and I'm not allowed to read the amendment or do anything with it until the governing board has approved that amendment. So when you do that, if you do an amendment, would you just please send me an email saying the governing board has approved this on such and such date? That will save me another phone call to you asking that question. So there isn't a way on our system for me to be able to know whether or not the governing board has approved. Any questions about that? And we're getting lots of amendments, so obviously you're looking at getting your plan completed for this year. Okay. Preparing your school land trust plan. The very first thing, some people get confused about the progress report. Truly, the progress report is one number. That's all it is. No commas, no dollar signs, just one number. Within that, make sure that you work with your business administrator, find out where you are financially now, but also you have to include in that what's encumbered until the end of the year. So that, and again, we understand it's an estimate, but please make sure that you include your encumbered funds for the end of the year when you put that number in. Any questions about that? There seemed to be some confusion about that, so I appreciate that. The other thing is oh good, I thought I went backwards. Is goal writing. Most of the things that I have had to send back last year, in fact, the last few years, is about how to write a goal. And so one of the things that is different this year, and it is for every school in the state, is the TSSAP plan. And I'm not going to even begin to understand everything about that plan, but it has affected our plans. And so just so you understand that the TSSAP, there is a requirement that it needs to be a component. The school land trust plan has to be a component of your TSSA plan. Now there's one thing there's the overall format or the goal or whatever else, but we're talking specifically about goals. I know that you were required to do a framework. The framework is great, but it's whatever your goals are that makes a difference for us, and so that it should be able to do it. It's very similar to the way it was before, but we want to make sure that, and let me finish the sentence. We want to make sure that it is a component of that plan. But please understand, I will never know what your TSSA plan is. We don't look at it. We have no idea what the framework is of that. So please just make sure that it is part of it. Okay, any questions about that? We're delighted to see how this works this year and see if it really works. The one thing, that was really awful, wasn't it? The one thing that is a requirement is that you have to do, and this is for every school in the state, you have to do a data review. That means that you need to provide to your Trust Land Council, or Trust Land Committee, or your governing, obviously your governing board should know this, but they need to have access to what your scores are, where you are as far as your academics. What are you missing? Where are the funds that is going to make a difference to make for your students, for academically? So please make sure that you are providing that information to your Trust Land Council as you are helping them prepare a plan for their Trust Land funds. Any questions about that? Okay. Bold letters. Simplify and clarify your plans. Sometimes I think charter schools especially are used to writing grants. And so I think it's done on the number of words you do. The more words you use, the better chance you have of getting a grant. Not so in this case. So we don't want a book on it. What we want you to do is that find where your data point is. An example of this is they want to achieve 1 year's growth in math and science. That is the goal. is academic, it tells what you're going to do, and then it has to be measurable. Again, it has to be academic and it has to be student focused. I cannot tell you how many plans I've returned across the state where it says in their goal, we are going to purchase technology. That's their goal. And then their measurement is going to be, well, we know we're going to do it because we're going to purchase the technology. That's their measurement.
Number of items to be purchased.
Yeah, and then your action plan, you've got it. Thank you. And then their action step is that we're going to purchase technology. Now, nowhere in there does it really say how that is going to affect students. Why are you purchasing your technology? That's what the goal is. What is it you're trying to do? You're trying to increase your math scores and your science scores, whatever it is you're purchasing. So please make sure that you're very clear on your goal, and it can be that simple. When you're doing your action plan, we need to know briefly what it is you're going to purchase. We don't care how many pencils you're going to purchase or how many sticks of glue or anything like that. What we want to know is what exactly are you going to purchase? Are you going to purchase Chromebooks? Are you going to purchase TVs? Are you going to purchase textbooks, online subscriptions, whatever it is, please do that. We have a lot of money being spent on field trips, and which is totally appropriate as long as they're academic. And so before we would make everyone put down what are you going to actually do on your field trips? And then you came back to us and said, our teachers don't know where they're going to go. We know that they want to do a science field trip or something like that, but we're not sure where they're going to go. So we have relented and said, okay, as long as you stayed in there, that this is going to be academic field trips, and you can identify, which area you're kind of looking at, whether it's social sciences, or social studies, whatever it might be. But the key is when it comes time to the final report, you have to document exactly where you went so that we can clearly see that it was academic. Now, I will tell you the horror story is that when we did a compliance review, and just to put your mind at ease, it was not a charter school. So there you go. Charter schools wouldn't do this. Anyway, when we went down and we were looking through all of their receipts and everything, we found a receipt that spent, I think it was close to $2,300 to go to a ski resort. And so we said, well, where does this fall? It's not even in your plan. What are you doing with it? And they said, well, we just wanted to take our kids on a field trip. And we said, well, great, but how is it academic? And the principal sat there and finally he said, well, I think I can make this academic. We'll put it in the math category and we'll test about how many feet they go this way and how many, well, they paid it back. So please don't do that. Please be very specific in your final reports that you state exactly where your students went. And it needs to go back again to what it was in your plan. Okay, again, I cannot reiterate how important this is. April 1st is the deadline. I bet you guys got that by now, huh? Okay, by that time, your council has to have met, regardless if it's your governing board or whoever else. They have to have met, they have to have voted on it, and that plan has to be on our website by April 1st. Any questions at all about that?
So April 2nd is what you're saying, right?
No, April 2nd. Actually, they put this in my UPM that I'm getting graded on as to whether or not you guys get your report in on time. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going to get a good grade. So just so you understand why you're going to hear from me. Okay, one of the areas I also wanted to just quickly talk about was website requirements. This has been a real bugaboo for a lot of schools of knowing what is required. And please understand, this is not a requirement of us. This is a requirement that has either come from the school board or from the legislature. So these are the items that have to be on your school's website. Your council has to be listed. If it's your governing board, great. But if it's a trust land council, their names have to be on there, and they have to have contact information. You can't just put on there, well, this is who our thing is, but if the parents don't have the ability to contact that council, then that's really important to the legislators that they have that information. So one year we had someone that had to be taken off, and we couldn't figure out why, and come to find out they were in protective custody, the family was, and so they couldn't obviously have their name on there. So please be careful what you put on there, but they have to have a way to be able to contact them. The other thing is you have to have a proposed meeting schedule for the entire year on your website. So parents can know whether or not they can come and attend, when it's going to be. And know that if there is a reason that you have to make a change, please update your website, because again, that's where they're going to go to be able to find the information. The other thing that is required is the prior year's report, which is your final report from the previous year. If you want to do a copy of it and upload it to your website, you can certainly do that. Or you can simply write a summary of how your plan was implemented with the amount of money and everything that was available, so that they can understand how those funds were spent. This is sometimes a little confusing to people, is that you have to notice your meetings. There has to be a meeting agenda on the website. There has to be the minutes of the prior year, minutes of your prior meeting. That has to be on your website. And then in conjunction with that, you have to have 3 years of minutes available, that when we come to do a compliance review, you have to have available to us. If I ask for them, you need to be able to send to me 3 years of minutes. Any question about that? Yes.
Our governing board serves as our land trust committee. And so all of the meeting dates and the agendas and the minutes are already posted on the website. Are you saying those things have to be posted in a separate area with the land trust information?
No, I think somehow you need to let your patrons know that they are serving as your the governing board is there. And I think the only requirement actually for the governing boards, as I put at the bottom, and they're serving at, is that they have to have your TSSA plan on your website. That's the only thing there is there. What I'm finding though is that I even go to the Utah Public Notice website. I'm not even finding things on there for some schools at all. They have to be one place or the other. I mean, they have to be noticed. So, yes.
So you mentioned the proposed meeting schedule. So if we have our governing board, who is our school land trust committee or council, would it be sufficient to say that quarterly they discuss the school land trust and then kind of really emphasize that in our agenda and our minutes?
I think that would be helpful. The law is not really clear when it comes to the governing board serving. It's really hard for us to know, but I guess that the thing I would ask you to do is that this money is really important to legislators. They want to make sure that parents understand where this money is going. And especially if you're using a trust land committee as opposed to your governing board, the intent is that they want parent involvement in making the decision on spending this money. So I would leave it up to you as to how you want to involve them or at least let them know what you're doing. The other thing that we find that is missing is your rules of order and procedure or your bylaws. And again, we're talking trust land committees. And there is a template on our website that that says rules of order and procedure. And again, it's a template. And Natalie Gordon has gone through and highlighted in yellow all the things that you need to fill in. And so we can tell if all you're doing is taking that template and putting it on your website. If it's still yellow, we know that you haven't filled it out. So you need to go in, and it's especially important that you put down how many people, the decision of the council, how big your council is going to be. They make the determination of how many people they want to serve on it. Okay? And so if you have, this is where we run into problems. If you say in your rules of order and procedure that you're going to have 6 members on that committee, 5 members, whatever it might be, that's a position. It's not a person by name. It's not Mary's. It's not John's. It's a position. So the thing is that they need to be staggered. So if you have 6 people on, you should have an election every single year, because it's a 2-year term, and so every 2 years that position should be up for consideration. So make sure that you put in there and that you don't get that stagger off. It's really difficult, because what we were finding is there were a lot of schools, everybody was coming on at the same time, going off at the same time, and there was not any consistency whatsoever, because no one knew what was going on. Okay, and then with that, that's different than the regular schools, is that the principals do not have to serve on the trust land committee. They can, as long as it is a trust land committee and not their governing board. They're not required to do that. I say that because that's what the law says. I can't even begin to imagine a principal not wanting to be involved in how some of the charter schools are over $100,000, how in the world they don't want to be involved in those decisions. So please work with your council and determine who you want to be on there. Again, it is not a requirement that you have to have an employee, a teacher as a charter school. Again, I would think as a suggestion and a best practice, you would want to have the input from your teachers of how these funds are going to be spent. But again, it's a little bit different than what it is for the regular schools. They have to have, the principal has no choice. They have to serve. You guys get a pass. Okay, any questions on what has to be on your website? I will tell you, we are actually reviewing websites, and every single website is getting a review, and we're doing it on a basis of a baseline. We know that there are a lot of things missing, but we just want to make sure that you understand what's missing and what needs to get on there. Don't want you to be concerned. We know that there's a lot of things missing. So this is an opportunity to get it on top. Any questions about the websites? Yes?
Where do we find that rules of order and procedures again?
If you go to schoolandtrust.org and you don't want to log in, you just want to go to training. I'm wondering if I can even get on here. I'm going to see if I can get to our website. I bet I'm going to knock you guys off. I'm sorry. Oh. It requires 2 L's. Oh, no. Okay, so if you go to training, and then you can go to, you go scroll clear to the bottom, and it says Rules of Order and Procedure Template. This will come up, and you can see, you can fill it out from there, okay? And this is a working document, so please, if you want to need to make changes, whatever they might be, this is a great opportunity for you to do that. You can't, what has happened and that is against the rules is that, say you have, your council is made up of 6 people. You have 3 positions opened. So you send out information to your patrons and you say, who would like to be able to serve on the Trust Land Council? And you get 4 people respond and say that they want to do it. What has been happening over the years is they'll say, oh gosh, we've got 4 people, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, so we're just gonna have everybody serve. That's not allowed. It really is not. And so if you decide that you want to increase your numbers, you can't do it right then. You have to go through a process of submitting that so people know what it is, and then it would be the following year before you could increase that. Any questions about that? I got you. Oh, dear.
Yep, I think that's.
Okay, that's my last. Okay. Is there anything that we can help you with? Any questions you might have that, yes?
What's the recommended timing of this? Because we do these plans so early for the next year. But in terms of trying to get members on a committee and doing a vote,
Your vote is the people that are here currently serving right now. They're the ones who are preparing the plan for next year. So you don't have to, your elections usually take place in the fall to fill any of your positions. So it is your council this year. That make sense?
yes and no. If you're gonna do plans, you need to do your plans before the end of this current year.
Correct.
And get them out. And when you do elections in the fall, you don't know whether those people can make those meetings or not. That's why sometimes it's difficult to get some of that done, particularly if your board meets every other month.
Right. Well, again, let me make sure that I'm stating this clearly so it doesn't cry. Your council that is serving currently, and they may be serving again the following year, but this council right now is the one who is going to say how the money is going to be spent. And so once that vote is taken, and they say, yeah, this is how we want money to be spent, next year, if the council meets and goes, you know what, we need to make some changes, that, you can go through the amendment process. But the council that you have currently is the one that makes that decision. Clear? And your concern is that they're making the decision for a future council, or?
No.
Oh, okay. Hey, any other questions? Well, you guys are awesome. Thanks very much. I am just a phone call away. We do respond to phone calls. Happy to get them, and I'm going to try out and get out and visit more schools, because that's the fun part of it. So thank you very much.
All right, as I had mentioned earlier, we're going to turn the rest of our meeting over to Casey. So before that, we'll just end with the last couple of announcements, and then she will take us through the rest of the afternoon. Our next meeting is April 13th, 12:30 to 3:30. Also, while Karen was presenting, we had two emails come in from the building. One is that a black Jeep is blocking the parking ramp in the southwest portion of the parking lot. So if that is your black Jeep, please remove it. And there is also a black T-Mobile cell phone that was found in the men's restroom. So if that is yours, it's at the front desk. Other than that, we'll turn the time over to Casey.
Will I have access to
Yes, you will. I'm just following up right here.
Yeah, dude.
I'm not good yet. If it does happen.
just say that you have the black jeep?
You got a good one. Remember the needle, Dad?
Still stuff tomorrow.
Is it on? Alright. What is it? Access to all three?
Yeah, 10, 10, 70. 70, 57.
This is the first time.
No, 1-8.
We get to go.
That's so true.
And then your sound will connect through there. So you should be good to go.
Thank you.
If not, we're here. We'll run up and
We
say
can
it.
figure it out.
Maybe.
Fail to find server. Not again.
If it's new sped laws, or just all the concerns. Trying to log in so she can watch it.
7057, right?
057, yep. Why don't we take a 5-minute restroom break while we get our technical difficulties resolved, so. Restrooms are just out from the way by the leaders.
Updated.
Oh, no.
That's why.
Right? Always up with the most.
And I have. But I really want to update right now.
Right. Yes.
Okay, I brought my MiFi. I was like, I don't trust this right now.
Yeah, it's been kind of going in and out today, it seems like.
What is the deal?
Right. far, so good. Yeah.
Good luck with your class. See ya.
Group here and then group.
Oh, okay. All the mics are on, so. SEL throughout the tiers, then the last part is privilege and all that fun stuff that funnels
That'll
into.
be really helpful.
It never
Excuse me. Yeah, you're still at the 7057.
And
10.10, .70, .57.
there we go.
6018.
601.
Okay. Yeah.
You love depending on technology for everything. So much fun. Okay, so we're gonna talk about social emotional learning. By show of hands, how many of you are familiar with that term? Just so I have an idea. Okay. Alright, so I created a Padlet. You can access it using the URL, or you can download the Padlet app. Show you what it looks like. There you go. So the URL is at the top, tinyurl.com/raising-SEL. You'll find all of today's resources. And then I will upload today's PDF of the PowerPoint. You might see an old one, but that's not today's. Everyone have the URL before I move on? All right, give me a thumbs up when I can move on. Okay. A little bit about me. I'm the behavioral supports mental health needs specialist in special ed. By training, I'm a school psychologist, board certified behavior analyst, so they refer to us as BCBAs. Utah is move number 5 for me. It's been a very eventful 15 years. I married someone in the Air Force. But I've been able to kind of see what this looks like in this framework around social emotional learning around the world. So I've been able to live in Italy, Maryland, Texas, and hopefully the last assignment will be Hawaii. That'd be awesome. Today we're going to cover, it's going to be a brief overview of what social emotional learning looks like across the multi-tier systems of support. We're going to get into specific nope, not again. Stop it. I'm not doing this. Not doing this. You will wait. But I'm going to give you kind of a brief overview of the work we're doing with a lot of the higher ed folks with around cultural responsiveness, equity within education, just so you have that terminology, because I'm sure you're hearing a lot of it already. All right, so social emotional learning. I'm going to do a quick poll real quick. So this is not going away, but I'm going to go to the actual website. But I want you to think about what is social emotional learning and what comes to mind. That'll get us thinking about the direction we want to go. All right, so how you're gonna access it, coleev.com, my name, 591, or you can shoot a text to 37607. But I want you to tell me a little bit about what comes to mind with social emotional learning. And what do you think it means in terms of what we do? Learning for the whole child. What else? Learning that takes into account the social and emotional needs of children. Learning how to respond to the world around you. That's a good thing. The world you live in versus the one you would like. Educating the whole child is the collective act of teaching the child and considering all facets that make them who they are, social, emotional. I like that we're already thinking about how this generalizes outside of the school setting. That's a lot of it. So I'll go back to the slideshow. So, and looking at the definition and looking at a lot of the research, and I'll kind of get into ASSO, who kind of leads up. Definitely, if you're focusing on social emotional learning, you should be looking at different components. So you definitely want to think about self-advocacy. I hear that a lot, getting students to learn how to do that across their development, making responsible decisions, setting and achieving positive goals, and really a lot of understanding and managing emotions. And that goes for us as well as educators. We're modeling a lot. But if you that in those contentious meetings, and I'm a school psych, but IEP meetings, you're like, oh, okay, self-regulation, this is something we should probably think about, right? So with thinking about social emotional learning, it's very encompassing, but I think we can do it if we chunk it. I'll kind of talk to you about how you do it. So it's more than just, what I'm seeing a lot now is the curriculums. Everyone wants to go out and buy, I know the eye roll, that's me usually, I got control of faith. But everyone wants to go out and buy a curriculum. I'm like, yeah, Casey, I did it. Social emotional learning is done, box check, right? It's half of it. I hope it's research-based and appropriate for your demographics. So you really want to make sure that it's a part of your school culture. It's not just something that you can put into a curriculum and say you're done. I know a lot of us work at settings or have worked in settings where you know it's hard for you to go to that site. So you want to think about that as well, because a lot of schools I visit and support, they're like, yeah, we're implementing social emotional learning, but they haven't really attacked that school culture. So that's half of the equation. You won't see a lot of changes if you don't address your school climate and your school culture. Talk about that as well. I gave you a link. I won't go over it and play it right now because it's about 5 to 10 minutes long, but it gives you a good framework of what social emotional learning looks like. So I really encourage you to do that. Good information about how to set that up. Now, Castle, we're working with them a lot at the state office to figure out what our state framework looks like. So their core competencies, again, kind of like the ones I mentioned earlier, but it's that self-awareness, relationship skills. They are really helpful, and I really recommend you go into their website to figure out where you are in this process and the implementation. And they have really good research around each level, and they have guides for each level for elementary and secondary. So if you're in the beginning of this or in the middle of this, if you have not looked at them, please do make sure that's a part of your conversation within your leader. You want to make sure that you have a good solid foundation before you move on. Because if you don't, you're going to have to go back and do all that. So when you look at the social emotional learning continuum, it's not just what's going on in the schools. And Castle does a great job of kind of showing that it's more than just the school setting, it's the community and that collaboration. I found as I've worked a lot around the US, the more I collaborated with outside organizations, the easier my job was. So for example, with the school psych, I got a lot of referrals and a lot of testing requests from outside providers that were social workers or primary care providers, physicians, and I see that a lot in Utah. They're like, yeah, the doctor said, and I'm like, that's great. And I'm happy to have their input, but they don't tell us how to support kids in the school. Okay? So we have to collaborate as a community so they can understand, like, okay, this is what MTSS is, this is positive behavioral supports, and I saw that as I brought them in into that conversation, they were more aware of the supports we provided within the school setting. So then we could kind of work together as a team, and then whenever you're meeting together with families and parents and whoever, you all understand how the supports work. All right, so we're looking at the history and the research around discipline. This is what I found. Historically, we looked at discipline and its students as what's wrong with you? Heard ourselves or heard other educators, like what's wrong with this kid, what's wrong with this family? Instead of now the current research and the best practice is, okay, what happened to you and how can I help you? And I had this conversation in a recent training with an individual because she was very frustrated that a student was being bullied and they weren't She felt like the school team wasn't being active enough on that student's behalf, but I was also like, so what about the kid that is doing the bullying? How are you supporting them? Getting to the root of why is that a behavior pattern for that student? Because you're supporting both instead of just one. How do you prevent this behavior? So we really have to have a mindset shift of being from that very punitive model to a more collaborative social emotional learning continuum. How many of you are familiar with the LRBI? Yay, there's 2, there's 3. Okay, this is available to you as a state. Of all the states I lived in, never had something like this. So this is awesome that this exists. If you don't have access to it, I put a PDF in the Padlet. Revamped by yours truly. I have a team of us working together and we're collaborating, but it's probably not going to be the LRBI because it's really going to be learning. I think the name LRBI, the least restrictive, really has everyone thinking that it's Sped Center, and that's what it was historically, but we're moving towards it's going to be a more collaborative approach, and it's Gen Ed and Sped and Five. So it's going to look a little different, but for now, this is the current table of content. I really would like you to utilize this because a lot of the questions I get and a lot of the state complaints I see, it sounds like a lot of people are not utilizing this. You have a lot of good resources in here on like how to create functional behavioral assessments, how to develop behavior intervention plans with fidelity, how to establish a multi-tier system of support, how to establish a positive behavior intervention. Have that to you for free as a state, which is remarkable. So I want to make sure that you're all utilizing that. If you have questions, please reach out to me and we can figure out how to utilize it at your site. Okay, again, make sure you're utilizing it if you're going to be working with the LRBI across your tiers of intervention, not just for special education. What is MTSS? Okay, by show of hands, how many of you are familiar with MTSS? Okay, good. Really, it's just a framework of how do you implement interventions across your settings, Gen Ed and SPED, in a structured way with research-based interventions. That's what MTSS is. And what I'm finding a lot of times when I go out and support, everyone will tell me, yeah, Casey, I have MTSS, and they'll have like one side of the triangle, so they have academic support, not so much SEL. If you're implementing MTSS, you have to have both. You have MTSS, you have SEL, you have restorative practices, you have positive behavior interventions and supports, all of that's intertwined. So you want to make sure if you actually have MTSS in place that you have all of that intertwined. That makes sense? Okay. So a lot of the times within the school setting, I see that we struggle with the first part, so tier 1 and tier 2. Our tier 3 usually is overwhelmed because we have a tendency to be very reactive, like, Casey, this kid needs SPED, this kid needs support, we need to identify them now, and it's only really designed for 5% of your population. So you really want to make sure that you have a solid tier 1 and tier 2. So you want to have that structure in place, and then ideally have everyone on site know what that framework looks like, so you can stop anybody in the hallway and they know, oh yeah, that kid's in tier 1. This is what that instruction looks like for that. What I find often is SPED people know. Who are my SPED people? Oh, we can tell you too. My Gen Ed people, they kind of like, I don't really know, go ask the school psych. And you don't want it to be person dependent, because whenever that person knows the system, and they get a job, guess what? They take that with them. That usually is me. I'm the MTSS PBIS queen. Give you orders, I take that entire system with me. You gotta make it dependent. You want to make it to where it's collaborative and it's not dependent on one person. How it can be useful. Really, it improves equity across your levels of instruction. So you're not just putting all resources on one department. And I saw in practice that it really helps to prevent unnecessary special ed evaluation. So you're not inappropriately putting kids in special education because you have beefed up your levels of instruction across your tiers. Also, it's systematic, and we're going to get into a little bit of what that looks like with looking at students, reviewing their data, making data-based decisions to where you're not making You're not just being reactive and sending kids to special ed because you don't have any other resources that students need. How many of you are familiar with PBIS? So I won't play the video then, because it's knowledgeable about it. I'm gonna talk about it more. So it looks like so tier 1 with social emotional learning. The first thing is really important out to me. A lot of the times schools won't put up the expectations. I mean, put up the rules and expectations across the campus, what to expect. So whenever you are in a situation where you're having to discipline, you can say, well, you know what the expectation was, why this is happening. So make sure that you're doing your part at least to say, this is what tier 1 looks like across settings, this is your role, this is your expectation. You also want to think about prevention screenings, just like you would do for Dibbles or Ames Web, fall, winter, spring, just so you can identify those at-risk kids. And you want to make sure you have a team, SEL team or your PBIS team, but kind of reviewing at tier 1. Okay. Or tier 1, or does you have access to school psychs and social workers, behavior specialists, like these are great people in the process. So you're regularly looking at data. All right, so tier 2. This is, okay, tier 1, yes ma'am.
Just a quick question. Do you have any resources for the prevention screenings?
An email.
Thank you.
So targeted, this is where you have students that struggle at tier 1, you try to support them, found it probably wasn't the most appropriate, and then you escalated to tier 2. So for social emotional learning, you really want to make sure the intervention matches whatever that skill deficit is. So a lot of times I'll come out and I'll look at behavior intervention plans and it really doesn't match the skill deficit. So you really want to make sure that you're thinking critically throughout this process. So if it's a self-regulation issue, you want to make sure that you have intervention targeted to self-regulation. Self-advocacy, you want to make sure you have intervention targeted to self-advocacy. And I've seen these look different, just depends on the needs of the population. So you can have a small group working with your counselor on specific skills, and they all share that same skill that they need to work on together. So it just depends, but definitely make sure you're communicating with parents. If you have a student that's being escalated, especially for social emotional learning, you live in Utah, make sure you collaborate with parents, make sure that they're aware. And then two, from those conversations, often you'll get a lot of insight to what's going on at home. You're working with someone outside of the school setting, and then you can build that relationship and share information. Always monitor your data, collect data. I see a lot when it comes to behavior or social emotional learning, but then you don't know what's working. Then you'll get to a meeting, usually it's a SPED evaluation or a 504, and parents are like, well, I don't think the school's done anything. And typically you have, you've done a lot, you just don't have any data to indicate what you've done. Make sure you're collecting data so you can be able to.
So when we collect that data, what are your favorite places to collect that data?
It depends, like you have a variety of platforms. So you and I can talk about that, what works best for your setting, but it really depends. Sometimes spreadsheets, I wouldn't recommend. You want it housed so you can track each student's progress and you know that they're in tier 1, they're in tier 2. I worked in one setting and they had like a data warehouse. Depends on your needs, but you want to make sure that whoever is a part of that team can access it. That's the problem. If you do an Excel spreadsheet, they only have access to that and then they take it with it.
Okay, yeah, I'll talk to you about that.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you time to think about what are you doing well? Thinking about two, what areas need additional support? Timer, but I really want to give you time to think about it while we're having this conversation. Okay, so what are we thinking?
For us, one of our biggest concerns is buy-in. We have a great system, but teachers are still, get them out of my class. We don't want to deal with it. And so that's where we're really struggling, is getting the teacher buy-in for the structures that obviously we still be working and changing, but getting that buy-in is where we're struggling. I think.
So definitely it's a mindset shift from, okay, punitive, I need to remove you from the environment to, oh, okay, how do I help you?
Right.
How do I support you, even if it's challenging behavior that I don't understand it.
Right.
What else? Areas of support you're identifying. Do you have anything that's working particularly well? All right.
I can share some.
Yes.
We are using it really well. We call it a chat team, and so we get together regularly and look over it and have some really good interventions that are working. We've been using some restorative practices, and the teachers come around. When they see how well it works, they start to come around. So we've had a lot of good success.
Towards the end of today, we're going to talk about some stuff that's really near and dear to me because I have like 3 hats. So a lot of social emotional learning support, the culturally responsive and equitable piece. We'll get into that because that's really where that mindset shift happens, where people are like, oh, I had no idea. I'm like, well, then now we do. So what are we going to do with it? And then the last piece is definitely mental health and behavioral needs for a SPED. But you really need to start with that groundwork of why is this important, like the long-term outcomes. And I've seen a lot of people change their mind. That's good. I'm glad to hear it. We got one. Okay. Tier 3, intensive support. One question. Is Tier 3 special education? High five to you. You get a gold star. Tier 3 is not special ed. It's gen ed still. And I know the philosophy changes. Like I moved to the West and the interpretation was totally different. I was like, what is happening? So Tier 3 is not special education. It's still gen ed. Special ed is more like technically Tier 4. So getting us to understand that triangle is really emphasizing the needs with gen ed. Outside of that, you're looking at like, just to clarify. At this level, you should make sure your behavior interventions are highly individualized. I really recommend doing functional behavior assessment. But making sure that you're determining the function, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but is it escape maintain? Is it attention seeking? Is it a hybrid of both? Just so you can make sure your interventions are more appropriate to the needs of that student. Really want to make sure that whoever is intervening at this level is very trained and how to support students at this level. Also, at this level, wraparound support is very helpful. So if you have community service providers, I did a lot of work because I am an ABA person with the ABA community and collaborating with them and inviting them to problem solving together. Also working with a lot of mental health practitioners. But if you have that wraparound support, develop those relationships so you can generalize skills across home, school, and community. All right. Make sure here too that you're monitoring the progress. Yes.
I just had a question about what you were saying with Tier 3 not being special ed and Tier 4 being special ed. So this is an area of confusion for me.
Yes.
What is left in Tier 4? If you've done an FBA, you've done a BIP, you've done individual supports, and the student has a disability that has behavior manifestations. What's left in Tier 4? Because it seems like you've done all the
You've done a lot.
individualized.
So at that level, then you're saying this student has a disability that's impacting them so much that they need specially designed instruction. That's the difference.
Are they getting specially individualized instruction
Yes.
in Tier 3?
No, it's not, because specially designed instruction, you only get that if you have a disability and you qualify for special ed services.
It feels to me like maybe it's just a label issue at that point.
Yes, and you're gonna get very creative, and I have, and I get that. You're just like, so what's left? But at that level, you need to qualify for services, honestly. So to go to SPED, you qualify for services, you have a disability that we have demonstrated has impacted you enough that you need specially designed instruction. That, and I see a lot of confusion around it. Like, well, I've done that. Like, did you do an evaluation for SPED? No, then they're not a SPED student.
But if they are a special education student, then supports that you're giving them are not considered tier 2 or tier 3 anymore, because the types of supports they're getting feel like they're going to look pretty similar. They're receiving small group instruction or individualized instruction.
So if you're qualified for services, you're a student with a disability that requires SPED. That's a SPED student.
They might be getting those supports from a different avenue, but the supports might look quite similar.
Like you and I need to talk.
And that would be
Yeah, we'll follow up, because I'm like, I get what you're saying, but there's some areas I'm like, I'm not following you, because then we'll have to talk about specifically about goals.
Okay.
Like what goals look like, how would you qualify for services, and I'd have to probably look at the evaluation. Okay, we'll follow up. All right.
Can you do a favor though, when you follow up with her, it might not hurt to put out a something for all of us. You know what I'm saying? Like if that something that is beneficial for everybody to just hear a clarification. So
I'll shoot it to my charter school people.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
I know it's something that comes up. You're like, well, what's the difference and what does supports look like? But I do want to make sure too, if you have a student that has a disability, that you have a proper evaluation in place. Because I'm finding a lot of times they don't, and then that impacts services significantly in service time. We'll have a conversation. All right, so I want to give you time to think about and just think. Do you have a process for supporting students across tiers? If the answer is no, then you really need to consider about how you are problem solving for students. How are you reviewing data? If you are reviewing data. And then if you have a team or not, because that makes a difference. By disciplinary approach. All right, so I did put in the team initiated problem solving form because usually when I do these, I find a lot of people don't have a form for reviewing data. So that's on your Padlet. How many of you have something that you're looking at? So it's on your Padlet for you. If you don't have something, download it, utilize it. It's very helpful because usually when we come together and it's around social emotional learning or behavior, to be honest, it's been a vent session. You come, you vent about the kid, you vent about the educator, you think your decision to go in education. So you really want to have something that helps you to kind of prompt, like who's responsible for doing what, how are we going to follow up on this student, when's our timeline. I highly recommend utilizing some sort of tool, even if it's not the tips, just so you keeps you responsible. Make sure you're looking at data and you can assign roles. All right, how many of you are familiar with the UMTSS modules? All right, we got one. That's why I want to talk about it too. I have modules that we have created at the state office. So I think we have 5 new ones, kind of getting us all familiar with what this looks like across the tiers. So you have a teaming module, you have one that incorporates some of that SPED support and evidence-based professional development as well. They're free and they're accessible to all of you, so make sure you check those out, especially if you are on the leadership team and you're trying to get in what this can look like. Check those out. You can utilize them in your PD. Let's talk about SPED. SPED. I always put this slide in because as I travel and support around the state, I'm finding we only think about 3 of these eligibility categories. I really want us to be better at assessing and not predetermining what the eligibility category is. We should be assessing what the student's needs are, and it'll fall in one of these. But I see that we have a lot of confusion around autism, developmental delay, emotional disturbance, intellectual disability, and specific learning disability. So I really want you to be mindful when you're doing evaluations, that you're looking at all your data, and you're problem solving as a team. Sound good? Have a Utah SPED rules. Always refer to that, and you have a whole department dedicated to supporting you in that. So out when you need to. Talk about BIPs within SPED. Okay. So BIPs within SPED should be a behavior that is impacting their educational progress. It should not be the behavior that is most annoying to the educator. It should be what's impacting their educational progress. Also include specific goals and positive strategies. First thing, you really want to implement that PBIS module and make sure that you're reviewing every 4 to 6 weeks. That's where we're getting a lot of trouble as a state. When I think about all the complaints I get, a lot of it is just around not reviewing data, not collaborating as a team, not communicating what progress looks like. And that's what I was kind of talking about earlier, those goals. Making sure you're monitoring the progress of those goals and clearly communicating.
Have a template for a really good BIP on this. I just want a good template. We have a template for a BIP that we use, but I'm sure that, we've had it for a few years. There's probably something better that we're using.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about problem solving within the FBA and BIP. What that looks like.
Subway footlongs. My Subway footlongs.
How do I get the sound to connect? Do you know? I thought it would do it automatically. It doesn't look like it. Here. Thank you. Yep.
Welcome to Teachers in Education with a functional behavioral assessment. And let's first begin with some background. Functional behavioral assessments have their place in education, but if first can be linked back to the sciences, the functional behavioral assessment has its origin in applied behavior analysis, also known as ABA. Functional behavioral assessments.
I hear it like, okay, yeah, I hear it too. It's driving me crazy.
Are an essential component to positive behavior supports.
That frustrates me. We have all the technical issues in Basement West right now. Okay. You have the link. I'm not going to subject you to that because I wouldn't do it to myself. But I'll get into more and I'll probably highlight things the video was going to talk about. How many of you have done an FBA BIP start to finish? Okay. What you want to make sure you do is you identify the target behavior. Remember, it's not the behaviors that are most annoying to the educator. You don't want to list of 5 to 10. It's going to be a nightmare if you're trying to monitor the data 5 to 10 behaviors. Really trying to figure out why the student is so reinforcing, why that behavior is so reinforcing to the student. So it has to be function-based. And that's, again, going back to what I was talking about was, is it something that's attention seeking? Is it escape maintain? Like, why are they utilizing that behavior? And then you want to make sure whatever replacement behavior that you identify serves the same function as that challenging behavior. So if the challenging behavior is escape maintain, then you want to make sure you replace the behavior that you're teaching. Work so far? Also, too, want to make sure that you're collecting data to determine if the intervention is working. This is where we get in a lot of trouble as a state, because we don't do that part. Go through the process of the FBA, you get a BIP into place, and then no data. Parents are cranky. Make sure you're doing all of that work, collecting data to see if it's working. So the FBA, and I kind of pulled this from the LRBI, you could do it indirectly or directly. So my favorite was Come School Psych. I like those structured interviews because I got a lot of good information about what's going on at home, what's going on in the community, and with teachers. You can also utilize rating scales and checklists, and always to look at your student's record. Often we don't look at that part. We can be very just to see if they move around, if they had any absenteeism throughout their schooling, that can be very helpful. And make sure that you're collaborating with parents, because too, they can also. And directly, the ABC data, I'll get into that. It just kind of tells you the story. So beginning, middle, and end, antecedent, behavior, and consequence. And you can graph that, and you can kind of have scatter plots, and it's really helpful. And I've been in a lot of meetings where looking at that data helped to inform us, like, okay, so mornings were really difficult to do these kids. Afternoons, or you could tell whenever they switched parents over the weekend. I knew one of my kiddos, like, you came from dad's house, because Mondays are really hard. So just thinking about those different ways of collecting that data. So, ABC data broken down. Antecedent is what happens before the behavior. So in this example, you're like, okay, Alyssa, it's time to work. Her behavior, once you give that directive, is I'm gonna start throwing material. And then the consequence is the teacher removes Alyssa's work material. So that's just what happens right after that behavior, not what you did to the student, but what happens right after she starts throwing material. So this student, I'm hypothesizing that, okay, she's figured out if I throw things, I get to escape whatever the assignment. That'd be more of an escape contain behavior. Following me? Things you want to make sure that you're doing throughout your FBA, again, describing the behavior in measurable, observable terms. Basically, if it's measurable and observable, anybody can come in and see that student engaging in that challenging behavior and say that's the same thing. If you have something that's not measurable or observable, then everyone can interpret. Also, again, like we talked about, you want to make sure that you're collecting information on the possible functions. Is it escape maintain? Is it attention seeking? Is it a combination of both? Because I've seen that as well. Definitely, if you're going to collect all this information, look at it, analyze it. Because often what we'll do this process and not look at the information. And that information is to help you create a functionally appropriate fit. That makes sense? Okay. And then you're going to generate a hypothesis statement. So for the previous example, Alyssa throws materials to escape tasks. That's your hypothesis. Okay, so I want you to think right now. How is your FBA and your behavior intervention process being implemented right now with Fidelity? Anyone have a process? Yes.
We currently do, we hire out because we don't have all the resources. So we hire somebody that comes in to do the FUBA, and he observes the students, he parents, he sends out forms for all of our teachers or the people working with them, and then he takes all the information and develops a plan and sends it to us, and then we can tweak it based on what we need.
As long as you have that collaborative component.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we meet with everyone, and he asks all kinds of questions. He meets with and then he puts together a plan. Then we meet on that plan, obviously, and tweak it as we go.
Kind of consult with them as needed.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Any other processes? That's gonna be attached to your to-do, I'm assuming, right? Process with fidelity. Okay, so let's get into the BIP. Again, make sure, once you've done all that, you did the FBA, stick to a clear and measurable definition of that target behavior. And make sure that you're planning to teach more acceptable replacement behaviors that match that same function, right? And also consider antecedent and setting events. So like I mentioned before, the student who my parents were separated. You know this student is going to be going to their parents' house and they're going to have a difficult Monday. Think about how you might alter and modify Monday because of it. Also, too, if you have students with that take medication, consider that. I've modified behavior interventions based off of students taking meds. If I knew they were taking meds in the morning and the afternoon, I would tailor things and goals around that. So always think about those different environmental factors. It'll make your BIPs a lot more solid. 2 consequence manipulations, and I'm thinking for those are more of those kids that you might want to think about when something unpredictable happens. You know, always thinking about that environment and how that impacts the behavior. And you want to be mindful too of data collection procedures that are practical. A lot of times when we do this process in school settings, we'll go through this process, but then this is where we fall apart in the data collection because sometimes, especially if you're working with like an outside consultant, make sure that they are giving you recommendations and feedback that are applicable to the school setting.
And I think that's where we need to tighten that up.
Yes, so I'm doing too much, people. So I'm a school psychologist, president-elect for the State Association for School Psychs, and I support Utah ABA as their school collaboration chair. And I did that for that sole purpose, is because I saw a lot of my ABA people, my colleagues were coming into school settings and they didn't understand. So you really want to make sure if you're getting like an outside consultant to help you, that data collection piece is applicable to your setting. Really reiterate that and advocate for yourself and your educators that this has to be something we can implement or wasting our time. And then also too, your timeline for implementation. Always, like I said, you're doing a lot of this work. Follow up. Make sure that you set it and hold your team accountable. We're going to meet every 4 to 6 weeks. Every time we come together. All right, before we all leave, when are we meeting again? All right, so I want you to think about which things stick out to you. What do you need to work on? Which conversations do you need to have? Stakeholders do you might want to invite to the table? Be mindful in adding you time to think about this. All right, so what are our thoughts?
I think we want to train our teachers on the functions that you're talking about, just so that they can start seeing motivation, not just seeing them as behavior, come from and how it can be affected. Exactly.
It serves a purpose for this kid. What else? anything else? Thinking about your next steps. But I hate to give goes away as soon as I stop running my mouth. So think about steps, especially for social emotional learning, is very critical for our. All right. So I'm going to put on my equitable and culturally responsible hat for the undercurrent of what we do, but a lot of misinformation. All right. Get into the mental health piece. Utah has the 5th highest suicide rate for ages in 2017. So this is something that we really need to be mindful of as educators and how it's impacting our population. 1 in 5 students experiences a mental health problem. This is real. And the majority of them don't really receive treatment. And I know it's a big issue for us as within Utah. I can't wrap my brain around Utahns. It just sounds wrong when I say it. But they don't really receive a lot of the support they need. Also, us, for resources. We gotta really make sure that we beef up our systems of support.
Why we're so high on suicide?
I have some, I would say, theories.
But is there any, what can we do?
Research behind
All right, I'll tell you what you can do. I have so many thoughts when I hear that because I'm not from here, but I'm gonna give you my USBE correct answer.
Okay.
All right. Continuum of school mental health services. You really want to think about this. You really want to think about what is my continuum look like? Do I have it established? Not how do I? Because this is something that's really impacting our students. So it's just like MTSS, but it's from the school mental health framework. So if you have access to social workers and school counselors and behavior support people, they're very helpful in making sure that this is implemented, checking in and following up. So I really want to make sure that you think about what that looks like, how you can create something that looks similarly. I know it won't be perfect at your site. I really want you to think about this too for every student. This is something we're really trying to support. But making sure your student has a single person in your building that they can go to academic concerns or social emotional support. Don't think every student does have access to someone. Trying to figure out how do we create that. Okay, so how many of you are familiar with the school to prison pipeline? Term. Why is there a lot of awareness has to come with these concepts, so that's why I incorporate them in, so you're aware. All right, so historically, there's a lot of school policies and practices that have led students to more restrictive practices. Remember I was talking about the punitive model and the mindset shift? So as I've done this work and I've dug into the research, a lot of it has led to significant disproportionality in out-of-school suspensions for kids of color. You really need to be mindful of intervening, why you're intervening, and how often are you in certain populations. Because we have to reflect on, wait a minute, who's getting the special ed evaluation? And I've done it too, I'm guilty as well. Especially if you have that parent that has the dispute resolution specialist on speed dial, right? So you want to think about that because the decisions we make have very long-term outcomes. And I think that we're seeing a lot more of this research now because of more and more different types of people coming into these fields and looking and doing that research. So discipline is often proportionally, Black students are more likely to be suspended. There it goes. It's called Black escalation effect. And this is something I experienced a lot living here in Utah. I'll talk to different educators of all stripes, and just thinking about how we talk about students is powerful. Because I was talking to an educator and he was like, well, this student looks like a criminal to me. And I was like, okay, so how so? Where he was wearing headphones. And I was like, an observation. But this person's very powerful, making a lot of decisions that impact students long term. So thinking about how we perceive very valuable and insightful in how you do this work. I want you to think, pause. Do you have an active school to prison pipeline? If you do, which steps do you need to take to make sure that it's not active? Okay. When you hear the term implicit bias, I know it's in the zeitgeist a lot. What comes to mind? At this portion, it's okay. I expect it. What comes to mind?
Everybody has bias.
Yes.
And it's something that you can become more mindful of, and you can better at controlling. But I think it's something that kind of you grow into it as you're a child, and you're around people who make comments or act certain ways.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yes.
Sometimes it just seems so natural that you don't even notice it. And that's the scary part. Yeah.
That's what I would like people to understand, that it's not intentional.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, that's the rest of the video. You have a link, but I don't think it's working because the sound keeps catching. Only 2 minutes. Take 2 minutes out of your life and watch it, because it does a really good snapshot of what this looks like within America. I wanted to tailor it to our country. And okay, that's what that looks like, and that's how that impacts me and what I do. So with implicit bias, just be mindful that it's implicit. You don't control it. Not intentional, deliberate. But it informs how you make decisions in supporting students. Very powerful within social. All right, I'll come back to that because there's something. So, be mindful of fragility. How many of you have heard of the term fragility? Right there. Whenever I have these conversations, and I train a lot around this because it impacts a lot of our data and how we support kids, I'll get a lot of, well, okay, so I'm a good person. I vote this way, and I donate here, and I have different types of relatives, and you know, the thing of, oh, my niece is black or my granddaughter. I'm not asking that, but I want you to be mindful of whenever you get new information, how you feel. And if you're finding yourself being incredibly defensive, think about it. Process it for a second. Not a challenge to your identity as a good person. Mindful of that. And also, too, as our demographics change as a state, new people workforce, expect friction. You're going to have new ideas and different perspectives, and that's okay. But we got to check ourselves on how do we reflect, how we deal with that defensiveness. Utah can be a little homogenous as an outsider. That's what it definitely, I got that sense when I got here. So being mindful that we are growing as a state, practice are shifting, is going to impact how we implement and support around. Okay. Project Implicit, I highly recommend you taking one of their tests. I'll put this up on our Padlet, but their test, Harvard does a really awesome thing at kind of getting you to check your implicit bias. And some of the assessments look at like gender and career, weight, sexuality, religion, skin tone. I think it's very valuable, and I definitely recommend you taking this back to your sites because it can help us in trying to check ourselves. So you'll do this assessment, see your results, and be like, I had no idea that my immediate reaction was to think. All right, so let's get into the effect of privilege in schools. How many of you have heard of the word privilege? Yes? Okay, let's get into it. So, what is it? It's unearned advantages that are highly valued but restricted to certain groups. So, for example, being born into a wealthy family gives you access typically to education, mental health, opportunities. Also, the privilege of being able to walk into a store without suspicion. That's another privilege. When I first moved to Utah, it was very humbling to come to a place with a lot of people that didn't look like me. The first week I was here, I was followed home by a police officer. So I really want, and I challenge my educators to be informed. Should be. It's our responsibility to. It's impacting our kids, our families, our communities. So being aware of these topics is very powerful. Also, did I put it in here? I did. The curiosity kind of talks about privilege in terms of power and resistance. And everyone, what I like about using this image is everyone can kind of find themselves on there. And it's not as, you don't get that defensive behavior that I get from a lot of people, typically. So you can see, for example, where privilege and access is on this continuum, white, heterosexual, able-bodied, and then being more of the unable to access that type of privilege, so it's more oppression resistant side, persons with disabilities, being a person of color, being a woman. That makes sense? I wanted to have a visual prompt so you understand kind of what I know it's thrown around a lot, but I want you to understand what it looks like and how it applies to what we do. All right, this is when privilege gets us in trouble. So when you're making quick decisions, usually if you're in a reactive mindset, gotta make something really quickly happen, this is what has led to our data indicating disproportionate practices. So just being mindful, being reflective in that moment, like, okay, why are we intervening here? Why are we choosing to suspend here? Thinking about how we are doing that for certain populations. When I looked at the research, a lot of it indicated the stigma around who's a criminal. And it usually Latinx and African American males. So being mindful of that, especially as our demographics change. So again, I know these are not the most fun topics, and I understand from a historical perspective why. However, if we don't incorporate culturally responsive practices within our education setting, student engagement and alienation, all these things be a part of your day-to-day experience as an educator. I really want you to educate yourself and be informed. Think about how these relate to social emotional learning outcomes for our students, because it's not just this is going to impact this kid for today, it's for years on. It determines what their future looks like. If they go to college or not, if they will be in prison or not, if they can be able to purchase a home or be a functional. Thinking about how your decisions today impact the students and families. All right, so I want you to think about what you can do. And I put some strategies together. One of the things that I found from looking at the research is very helpful is just looking at your school discipline strategies. Look at your data and sort it out. Who's being suspended, who's being referred, who's being referred. That can be very eye-opening. Constantly sending kids to the office. Also, too, being mindful of the one-size-fits-all disciplinary strategies. A lot of the data indicates it's just not helpful. Not as impactful, doesn't produce positive outcomes, such as that. Because I know at the state we tend to be very away from that, but a lot of the data indicates a lot of practices. Train your educators. If these are not topics that they are aware of, which as I partner with higher ed folks, sounds like a lot of them are not. So train your educators, because they'll be the ones implementing a lot of these practices. So you want to make sure that everything you do is anchored in equity, that you're giving your educators tools that empower them and that they also to looking at your demographics and putting representations up throughout the school. I love when I go to a school and they have like an awesome wall of families on it. And I've been in schools where parents are, oh, this is awesome. I ask like, what do you think? This is great. Because I feel like I'm a part of the school rather than my kids just go here. Think about those ways. This is just kind of getting you to think about what needs to take place within your schools and within yourself, honestly. A lot of reflection, and it's not a one-time thing, and I love that the research is moving away from cultural competence, because we really need to move away from the idea that this is you're going to get to peak wokeness and you can pat yourself on the back and be done. Not going to happen. You're going to constantly have to educate yourself and inform yourself and grow and stretch, and that's great. Question. Goes to developmental progression. This is from, I think I adapted this from two research. Yes, from 1989 to 2016 and 17, actually 3. But you'll see, you move from cultural destructiveness to cultural responsiveness. Then we all have areas that we fall in here. That's okay, depending on what the topic is. We're human. But I want us to, especially with working with our kids, to get closer to here. And we are fortunate because we are a part of a discipline with education that's actually trying to do the work, but understanding this and why it applies to our families. So that's pretty awesome, and I'm very curious what direction we go as a field. Okay, my Psych 101 people. How many of you are familiar with cognitive dissonance? There we are. Right here. That's okay. It's really that mental discomfort you feel when you get that goes against previous information that you probably consider as fact. Right? An example I like to use whenever I talk about this is overindulging in food. Who doesn't like to do that? I do it every Friday. Like, it's been a long week. I have earned a pizza, so I'm going to overindulge. That's my behavior. I know that overindulging causes health issues. That's my cognition. So I am in a state of cognitive dissonance every Friday. But I want you to understand how this impacts you when you're making decisions and you're getting new information, especially around issues with cultural responsiveness and equity. Be able to tact and label that, because that's what a lot of people experience, and I don't think they know how to label it and identify it, and that keeps this work from moving forward. That makes sense? I want you to think about it. What are the next steps you need to take? Which conversations you might need to have? How can you incorporate some of the strategies we talked about? I'm gonna give you some time. Mine's working. Is it? Okay, so what are we thinking? What are some possible next steps? Yes.
I think it's okay to accept that you can be conscious about that in itself is a behavior we all learn just growing. So to acknowledge it is not, I acknowledge that I'm this way and that's the way I'm going to stay, but rather permission and giving each other permission to do that, we can help.
Yes. Because you are teaching them that, okay, that's going to be a part of your lived experience. It's okay.
Right.
How do you monitor it? Great point. Anything else? Oh, these can be challenging conversations. I get it. If you need additional support, 3 hats. All right, so remember, anchored in equity. Grateful that I have a state superintendent that gets that. So remembering that equality and equity are not the same thing, although they're constantly used interchangeably. But with equity, you're going to give people and students what they need. That varies. It's going to look a little different depending on the student's needs. And understanding that you can't support with an education without looking at the systems, policies that shaped a lot of these systems. That makes sense? So I like this visual incorporated within the LRBI, but just kind of getting us to understand, okay, that's equality and equity varies. Give students what they need depending on what that need looks like. All right, so what have we learned? I'm gonna try and I hope this works because our internet has been dysfunctional to say the least today. All right. So there we go. You can join online or you can download the Kahoot app. And this is gonna let me know who's been sleeping, who's been scrolling through their phones. How well you do. How many people do I have? 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, give me a thumbs up when you've already logged in and you're set. All right. All right, thumbs up. All right, let's start. All right, not bad, not bad. But we could do better. All right, let's try the next one. All right, who did it? Let's see. Yeah, we talked about this one. Let's see. Within Gen Ed, that's the only clue you're gonna get. Question every time. That's why I'm gonna keep it in there. Let's see. How'd you do? This one is easy, friends. That's right. I was hoping. You passed. JB. That one should be easy as well. how do we do?
At this point.
Sarah is excited when they do it. Very good. I love that little. It lets me know like what y'all are paying attention to, and then too, let you come visit afterwards. All right. That is all for me. Remember, if you have any questions about it, because I know we went over some really technical, behavioral, social, emotional stuff, reach out to me. You can email me. I'm in the student support section, special ed. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Casey. That's the end of that. We do have our meeting for those that are in pre-turnaround. Otherwise, you're free to go. We got off a little early again today, so enjoy your extra time.
Thank you so much. Of course.
Right? We could spend a long time on that, but absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
You're asking.
I can't. We have a new tool, so I'm gonna give you my information. Shoot me an email like, hey, I want to bullshit out and I can just give it to you.
Anybody with that teachers or
Oh, that was so wonderful. You didn't speak my language. We were talking about, you were like, no one knows this, but you did it. We were fighting.
So, kind of call, me months ago from Ronnie, and we wanted to look at changing our bylaws to reached out to her a couple of times, and I haven't heard back. I just really wanted to guys.
Do you want my email?
Yeah, that's okay. She's super busy, I know. She's got all kinds of stuff.
We've got a lot of things we're dealing with, and we're trying all these different things to try. But it's the buy-in.
Maybe try to call and reach
I
out.
heard you guys are getting those too.
Just kind of discuss.
So
Just
okay,
trying
so
to
that's
hospital services, you know,
Well,
is there something you want to see?
I know, we project a lot.
Yeah, and so.
What's your email?
Brittany,
look, I already got you.
I would call the special ed department here. She's not like me.
Thank you. Yeah. But, and they've been through so many things that we try and make sure never happen to our school.
You're welcome. I hear that. Good. You're welcome.
And it just breaks
So
my heart.
hopefully,
They're
Great, we'll
constantly-
see you in
we
April.
can build a board that's from the community, and if the people that are invested in the school also have some kind of.
Tell me why that's expected. And so anyways, I just want to make sure that me and my staff, we've been fighting that battle.
Right.
I'm ready to move
It's
for
hard
next
to do
year.
that,
I think
and I
probably what we're thinking is maybe
Like, I don't have
to one of your meetings, and then that way we can kind of talk about next steps in changing the bylaws in order to incorporate those to.
Sure.
knock on my door and come in.
Bring it back up.
System shutdown, does that turn everything
It's
off?
probably the easiest way to do
We
it.
probably don't want to turn off that.
You see it?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if you're staying for the pre-turnaround meeting, if you want to come a little closer that way, I mean, I could talk loud too, but it just seems like it'd be nicer if you just like pull closer. I could yell, I'm pretty good at it. That's my kids, my family.
I know, yeah, some people use a panorama with Aspire and then another one that's really big.
So I'm just gonna say.
Is it
Okay.
less formal?
Email probably talk about it and then.
So,